Club friends. Here is a recap of this past Thursday's art club. That would be Thursday, December the 3rd. We did our second half of our portrait drawing tutorial. So we used these drawing faces for as a reference to create our portraits, and I'm just going to quickly recap what we did in lesson 1, and then of course move on to the things that we learned in lesson 2. All right, so we so far learned how to draw the portrait by creating our edge shape, dividing each part of it in half, creating our eyes, and that's about as far as we got on our first tutorial section. So I'm going to take you through the rest, and of course show you how to do the eyes, nose, and mouth. And of course you've got all of these wonderful resources here for you to use to look at while you're drawing. And of course, if you want to look at a person while you're drawing, that doesn't hurt as well, because it's always helpful to look at maybe a photograph or some reference of what you're drawing before you do indeed try to start drawing it. So I'm going to start out with my basic head shape. Get this in a good spot so it captures it all on my camera. So basically an upside down egg for the face shape, fatter on the top, skinnier at the bottom. All right, and on our face worksheet, it shows you to draw a very light line down the center to divide it in half so that things are symmetrical, one side to the other. Now we're going to take this face and divide that in half. So you're going to start at the chin and start at the top of the head and go right to where your fingers meet at the middle. And that is where you're going to put the eyes. And I'm just going to use my fingers to measure and make sure those spaces are even. And this is going to be where the eyes go. I'm going to divide that space in half again. And this is going to be where the nose goes. Just going to make sure my spaces are kind of even. And then do this last part again, right in half. Just use my fingers to make sure that space is even. And this is where the mouth is going to go. Now, we talked about last session that our faces are 5 eyes wide. So I'm going to go ahead and make an eye space in the middle of my face here. And then just measure with my pencil eraser and try and make 5 even spaces across the front of my face. Now, last session, yes, we did do eyes, but very quickly I'm going to put them in. You're going to do kind of like a frown shape above the line. Of course, I'm going to make that line just a little bit longer on the front and the back. And then same thing underneath so that I can get the bottom of my eyelid. And then, of course, we're going to go ahead and put that pupil in. All right. And the pupil and the iris, which is the colored part, is a large circle. And then, of course, you're going to put that black dot in there for the pupil. And yes, of course, you do want to shade in that eye a little bit so that it doesn't look like a white zombie eye looking back at you. And of course, I'm going to use my blending tool to just smooth it over. If you don't have a blending tool, then yes, you can use your finger or a Q-tip or a rolled up piece of paper. Now, last time we talked about doing eyes, if you're having trouble making that same eye twice, of course, my straight edge happens to be missing, but that's all right. I'll just use a piece of paper. You could totally use a piece of paper or a ruler just to make sure that when you draw the bottom part of your eyelid, it doesn't go any lower than the last one. And then same thing for the upper part of the eyelid. Just use a piece of paper or a straight edge so that you don't go any higher than your last eyelid. And of course, that's going to help keep your eyes kind of on track and being the same. Also, some tracing paper might help if you want to use some tracing paper, but I know most of you might not have that at home. So that's how I go ahead and try and create my eyes to try and look the same. And remember, we're not always entirely symmetrical. Sometimes one eye is a little more squinted up than the other. I'm going to go ahead and put my eyelids over the top. And then, yes, I'm going to erase these little guidelines here so they don't look weird. And of course, I'm going to go put my eyelashes. Notice how I'm doing that. I'm kind of going side to side. I'm not going straight up and down. I'm going from right to left a little bit so that it looks like they're kind of going off to the side. And yes, they get smaller as they get towards this corner of the eye. Same thing for the bottom. and a little curve on the inside so that it looks like a realistic kind of looking eye. I'm going to do the same thing over here, going left to right now, just the opposite, getting smaller as my eyelashes get towards the inner part of my eye. And then, of course, same thing on the bottom. Your lower eyelashes are a lot smaller. Now, on your worksheet, you're going to notice for the nose, let me grab that worksheet out so you can see it and see what I'm talking about. So the correct proportion for a person's nose is that it lines up with the inside corners of your eye. And you can actually feel that on yourself by putting your finger next to your nose and seeing that. And the reason why we do that is so that you don't make your nose any wider than that space. Otherwise, it might look like you have a big flattened out nose, or you don't want it to make it too small either. Now, I did give you some nose reference to look at. All right, there's lots of great noses here for you to look at. And I do want to point out a few little drawing tips on noses. All right, because noses can be kind of difficult. I usually call it the C-U-C method, or 2 parentheses and a U, or woo-hoo. All right, so every nose has a parenthesis on each side, and then it has like a little dip or a U in between. We'll talk about this side part in a second. But to get that basic point of the nose shape, I'm going to do a parenthesis here, a parenthesis here, and then I'm going to put that little down dip in the middle. So that's going to give me the point of my nose. I can curl those edges over a little bit. I think I made that a little bit too wide right there. There, I'm going to curve it over just a little bit so that it looks like the point of a nose. And now I'm going to erase my guidelines. Now, when we look at our nose examples here, you'll see there may be like a little line or a little bit of shadow to one side only of the nose. Don't want to do this to both sides, but definitely you can do it to one side. So I'm going to put a little kind of roundish half circle there. And maybe that little bump up. Now, sometimes a nose goes right up into your eyebrow. And you can even feel that on yourself. Start at your eyebrow and push your finger down, and it's going to go right down the side of your nose. So on one side only, you would have either that little line or that little bit of a shadow to make it look like more of a natural nose. Now, the next thing we did after the nose was we did the mouth. And yes, of course, in your reference materials, I do have a bunch of mouths that I put there for you just to give you an idea of what we're doing with a mouth. Keep in mind, all lips, no matter what shape they are, how poofy or not, they all have that kind of little dip in the middle. The bottom lip is always kind of like a large smile, and then the upper lip has these lines that come out from that little dip. All right, let me show you how I'm going to do this. So if we know that our lip line is going to be here, this is what the center of the mouth is going to be. I'm going to put my bottom lip below the line. Now, a little thing about mouths as well, they do have a reference point. Notice on your faces worksheet that the width of the mouth shouldn't be any larger than the center of a person's eyeballs. So I'm also going to draw those quick little guidelines down so that I don't make my mouth too wide. It can be a little tiny bit smaller, but you don't want it to be wider than that. So I'm going to do my frown kind of below the line, and then I'm going to do my little dip here, and then I'll go out and over to make my upper lip. Now, you do want to separate your lips, not with just a straight line. Notice I'm going to dip it down here in the middle and make it come over to the other side of my mouth. Now, in looking at your portrait, you might have to go back once you get those features on, and you might have to kind of symmetrical up your face, or maybe you think your chin is too shallow. Maybe you don't have enough room for your chin there. So, yes, you can go back and edit anything you might need to edit to make it look a little more naturalistic. Okay, so referring back to our drawings faces sheet over here, the last one, and this one shows you that the eyes live in this space in between the nose and the eyeballs. So what you're going to do is you can go ahead and give yourself some parentheses over here for ears. Of course, ears do have some weird lines and swirls into them. It does do very well to look at some ears before you draw them so that you can get an accurate representation of what some ears look like. Now, my person is a little bit bald-headed. Yes, they are. They don't have hair. I want you to notice on our worksheet here that our hairlines don't start up here. They've got to come down onto the forehead. Alrighty. So if you're drawing a hairline, and of course it doesn't hurt to look up some hairstyles on Google, but a lot of times hair starts down around by the ears and kind of curves around the head like you see here. Now, this is a pretty short haircut, so right now my hair might be looking a little bit more like a boy rather than a girl. But if you want to add more hair, maybe you've got some hair spikes, maybe you've got some long edges on it, just to start getting in the shape of the hair. Now, when I do hair, I always start out with what does the shape of the hair make around the head? And then maybe there's, I don't know, some bangs. Looks like the lead just fell out of my pencil. Maybe we've got some swoopy hair that comes across the front. Now, when you're doing any hair at all on your person, I just lost my blending tool. It did fall to the floor. This keeps happening to me. Now, here it is. I usually start with shading my hair up first and then adding some details to it. So I'm going to use my pencil here. And as I color it in or as I fill it in, I'm going in the direction that I think the hair would naturally be. So I'm just kind of following along the shape of the head. And then, of course, I can use my finger or my blending tool to blend it together to give it a more kind of natural look to the hair. And once again, it does not hurt at all to go on Google or look at a photograph of a person or somebody's hairstyle that you would like to draw. Now, next art club class, we'll be talking about shading and how to add in a neck so we don't just have a head kind of swimming here on our paper. I'm going to shut down my demo cam here because I want to talk to you also about your sketchbook assignments. Alrighty, so in your sketchbook, here it comes up right now. Most of you, I've placed this December sketching challenge. Here it is. Last sketching challenge, we only had 1 or 2 art club classes, so we all committed to at least one. So don't forget to upload a photograph of your art club sketch challenge for November into your sketchbook. But for December, I am asking you to commit to 4. So I'm asking you to choose 4 of the different topics here and give them a quick sketch and, of course, upload them to your sketchbook. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will see you next art club. I hope you have a great and wonderful rest of your day. Adios, auf Wiedersehen, sayonara, arrivederci, ciao, peace, and namaste.